The burden. I finally awoke this morning, the sun shining upon my face, blinding me a little, although it was soon covered by the clouds. I sat up upon my bed. Beside me was my window. Moving the curtains out of the way, I saw the pure white snow covering the ground, surprisingly still falling from the sky. It was quite windy. You can hear it like it was shouting. The snow wasn't high, but I still prefer not to leave the house. I closed the curtains and climbed out of bed, the ground feeling like ice. It was definitely cold, so it wasn't pleasant leaving the warmth of my bed. Eventually, I walked out of the room, and all you could hear was the wind outside as I walked. I went into the kitchen and saw no one. I assumed my parents were asleep, and my older brother was asleep too. I walked over to the glass slide doors. I watched the outside again. While I looked around and the snow seemed to be falling faster, but I couldn't be sure. I could see the fence of my backyard and behind it being the woods, though there was something odd about it. A figure I couldn't see. I couldn't tell if it was a person or something else, but I could tell there was a blackish jacket fur being on the tips of the arms and the hood, but nothing else. I could see a face or legs, though it just stood there, not moving. I ignored it and turned away, only to be scared by my brother Aaron. He jumped at me and made my heart race. "You should have seen your face," he laughed. "You nearly had a heart attack." I shook my head and pushed past him. He looked at me, laughing a little more before calming down. Ignoring him, I went to the fridge to grab some food. Aaron went to the dining table and sat down on a wooden chair. He got on his phone while I was about to leave. Before I left the room entirely, though, Aaron opened his mouth to speak. "How's Billy?" he said in a calming voice. I stood silent. "Who?" I asked. He looked up from his phone. "Your friend that got injured a few days ago," he explained. Flashbacks pierced my brain, but I shook them away. "I heard he was recovering in the hospital," I said, giving a half-hearted smile. Aaron looked at me with a slight smile and nodded. I walked away back into my room. I stared out the window and saw the same figure from earlier. This time I could see it a little more, but it still just stood there. I was about to walk out of the room again, only to bump into my dad. I looked up, he gave me a smile and patted my head, reminding me how short I am. "You alright?" he asked, while examining me. I pointed to the window and he walked over there. He had pale skin and brown hair, taller than Aaron, and gleaming blue eyes. He looked out the window for a minute and then turned to me. "There's nothing out there," he said. I then ran over to the window and looked out of it again. I still saw the figure. "It's right there, Dad, the figure by the woods." I pointed once more. He looked again, and he then looked at me with confusion. "There isn't anything there," he responded. I grew a little angry. I didn't know if he was messing with me or not. "You don't see a figure in a black coat with a white fluff on the hood and arms?" I asked. He shook his head. "I didn't see anything," he responded. "Though that does remind me of a legend." I looked at him with curiosity. "Legend?" He nodded. "There's a legend that a creature called the burden comes to one bad child every year 5 days before Christmas. It stalks the child every day, getting closer and closer. If the child doesn't redeem themselves, it is said to take the child on the Christmas night, and all the memories of the child will be forgotten forever," he said. I looked out the window. "What does it look like?" I asked while gulping down my throat. "Something around what you said. A black coat with white fluff around the hood and hands," he explained. I couldn't comprehend if it was just a coincidence or something else. I was terrified. Monsters aren't real, right? Why would this exist? It's just a legend. It has to be. I kept the idea from getting to me and continued on with my day. It's all just in my head. 3 days later. So, I check my window every day. The snowstorm continued to get worse and the figure always got closer. Neither my parents or Erin see it. Why can't no one else see it? I guess I must be going paranoid. A legend, that's all it was. A simple story to scare kids. I turned away from the window and looked behind me. I wasn't in my room anymore. I'm staring at a kid. A shorter kid than me and about a year younger than me too. He flew off his bike and hit the street hard. Blood surrounded his body. I could see his parents running over to him, crying and everything. His father calling the ambulance. I just stood there, motionless. I was across the street holding something behind me, though I found myself in my room before I could see what it was behind me. Although deep inside, I knew what it was. I clenched my fist and I punched the wall behind me. I knew what I did. I never regretted it till now. I wanted to cry, but what's the point? I knew what I did and I liked it. I got off the bed and walked out of my room. As I walked, I didn't feel like myself. My legs felt weak and I felt unbalanced. I wasn't sure why. I got myself stumbling over to the living room. I sat on the comforter and turned on the TV, my eyes feeling heavy. I wanted to sleep again, that's all I could think about. Sleep, sleep, it's all I want. I closed my eyes and instantly everything went black. 1 week ago, I walked outside one afternoon. Surprisingly, the weather was nice and I enjoyed it. It was about a little past noon and my mom told me to go outside and play. I had my ball, a soccer ball to be more exact. I was kicking it around a little bit. It brought back memories of when me and my brother played together. He's kinda grown up and did whatever he wanted. He even has a girlfriend too. I never understood what was so special about girls. Maybe I'd find out when I'm older. Until then, I'm gonna enjoy the outdoors, unlike him. I kicked the ball lightly as I walked down the driveway. As I looked down the street, I saw the kid I despised. Last year in 6th grade, he stole my card and a few other things. I couldn't do anything, not even tell them to their parents. Him and his group of friends would threaten to hurt me if I did anything to them. It was hard to really like them as friends the way they are. He rode up to me and smirked. "Look who it is, the retard of the class," he said in his squeaky little voice. "You better have our homework done by tomorrow," he ordered. I just nodded with an angered expression. He then proceeded to spit on my shoe and rode off on his bike. Anger bloomed in my mind, something I've never felt before. I walked across the street and played ball a bit, waiting for him to come again. On the right side of the street there was a steep hill. He generally rides down it for the rush. I never understood it. As he finally came round again, he didn't notice me this time. As he was about to ride down the hill, I kicked the ball towards his bike. There was enough force for him to fly off his bike and slide down the hill, making a bloody trail. I quickly got my ball and ran to his house and told his parents that he had crashed in the street. They rushed over to him, crying and everything. His father was calling the ambulance too. I was emotionless through it all. I saw that he was alive, but his skin was torn a good bit. Picking him up, blood splattered onto the street. My mother grabbed me away from the scene, making sure I didn't see anything like that. Later, I sat on my bed and just stared blankly in front of me, only to suddenly smile. I enjoyed what I did, and what I felt. He deserved it, is all I told myself, though I wasn't sure if even I could believe it. Early evening, Christmas night. I woke finally from the longest nap I ever had. I'm surprised even Aaron or my parents didn't wake me up. I looked around and saw Aaron chilling on the couch and playing on his phone. "How come no one woke me up?" I asked him. He looked above his phone a bit. "Mom said to leave you be," he responded. I nodded and got off the couch. I didn't feel weak anymore. I walked past the hallway to go to the kitchen, only to think I saw something standing there. I walked and peered down the hallway. I saw the figure from outside, just standing in the middle of the hallway. "Aaron? Who's in the hallway?" I asked. Aaron got off the couch and walked over to where I was and looked down the hallway. "There's no one there," he said while looking at me confused. I looked back and it was still there, and now it was walking towards me. I stepped back and I heard a low, growling noise. Are you okay?" Aaron asked me, worried. There's nothing there." The figure walked up to me and standing above me. It grabbed its hood and lifted it off, revealing a horrifying sight. Gray skin, no eyes, cracks on its slimy-looking skin. Its head was small, but it domed in the back, no fur or anything. It smiled menacingly, showing off its 2 rows of teeth with cracked lips. It drooled immensely as it stared at me. I couldn't move either, frozen in fear. I could see Aaron looking at me worriedly, but he didn't notice this creature in front of me. The creature opened its mouth wide. Darkness was all I could see, and the ticking of a clock is the only noise that I could hear. It was slowly going to grab me, but I slid under it. It turned around and ran toward me on all 4s. I ran as fast as I could, bust through the front door and outside into the snow. I stepped out there in bare feet, slowly numbing them. I tried to keep running, but the snow was deep and hard to drench through. I turned around only to see the front door wide open. Aaron ran up to the front door. "What happened? What's going on?" he yelled to me. I was about to speak, but I felt claw-like hands grab my shoulder. A tear fell from my eyes as I looked at my brother. I mouthed, "Remember me." He looked confused, and the next thing I saw was the inside of its mouth, in pitch black. The crunching of bones is all I heard, and all I could scream was, "I'm sorry." Aaron stood at the door, looking at the snow. He was about to say something, but couldn't remember who he was talking to.